Hi, Andrea. So you've got another set of essays for us. Let's see what you wrote. Pollution, why, and how can we solve it? Let's see. In this century, the contamination problem is one of the most important because of its severe effects. The rise of population, I think you mean the rise with an I. The rise of population and consumption are associated, no, sorry, let me try that again. The rise of population and consumption associated are the principal causes of the growing concentration of pollutants in Earth and is urgent and it is urgent to take action to avoid impacts in human health and on our planet through climate change. In this essay, we'll explain how the levels of pollutants have increased and possible solutions to this issue. Great! Really good job. Nice. Okay, firstly, it should be taken into, one word, into account that indicators of development of countries are directly related to its production and also its consumption. All right, that's a little confusing to me. I think I'm going to have to reread it. It should be taken into account that indicators of development of countries are directly related to its, I don't know, what is this its? That's what I think what's confusing me. What its are you referring to? So when you use a pronoun, it's important that it's clear what the pronoun refers to, okay? The consequence of that is while population increment, I don't know what this means here, what you mean by increment, there is a need for more resources to satisfy their demand. For that, a lot of factories must work. Generally, they obtain the energy from machines from fossil fuels. That implies atmospheric emissions such as CO2, SOx, I don't know what that is, and NOx, for example, comma, and here for that, comma. Not, most developing countries see industrialization without the as a way to evolve, but do not consider their externalities. Okay, I have a feeling that we're having a lot of wrong word choices here. I don't think you mean externalities. I don't think you mean increment. I think you mean, and I don't even know if you mean indicators here now that I think about it. So a lot of these word choices are incorrect and they're creating a lack of coherence, okay? They're making your meaning unclear. And so I'm going to suggest that you try to use clearer words, even if you think they're not as advanced. I would like you to be a little more accurate. Okay, so anyway, what you then need to do, of course, is to follow the acronym from the online course and give me like a takeaway, a conclusive sentence where you're basically saying that, therefore, due to increased population and development, pollution is also on the rise. Okay? All right, so to avoid or control this problem, there are plenty of measures that can be taken. The goal. Okay, their goal. Fine. Their goal is to stop or decrease the actual emissions using renewable energy sources, using pollution control, I think, using pollution control technologies, and also improving the transport system. And why is there? Okay, you know what the problem is here? It's like a list, and we don't want a list. So, when you give me this, reducing the actual emissions, you could say by using renewable energy sources and pollution control technologies, and then full stop, and then tell me how those measures would work. How would they help? Okay? Then you could say another measure that would be effective is improving the transportation system. By this I mean governments should incorporate electric or gas vehicles. And then you can say all of this. So I hope that makes sense. You kind of have to split some things apart. The last thing you want to do in a solution paragraph is make it sound just like a list, okay? So you have to develop it and explain how your solutions actually solve the problem. Okay, so, here we go. You said something about decreasing emissions here, but it doesn't go here. It goes after the actual section. So, to achieve the goal of decreasing emissions, the program included what? Okay, an example of things that can be done is the decontamination program of Santiago of Chile. Santiago, Chile is fine. To achieve the goal of decreasing emissions, the program included measures such as limiting contaminants, okay? So limiting contaminants emitted by industries, establishing a threshold of pollutant concentration in the air, and in case of excess, that limit some vehicles cannot circulate. This is unclear to me grammatically. I don't know what you're trying to say. Some companies are forced to stop their production, and it is forbidden to use coal as heating. Okay, again, it's a list. So I'd like you to try to restructure the paragraph in the way that I'm suggesting. So in other words, you mention a measure, and then you mention how it would help solve. And if you have an example of how it did that someplace else, then please feel free to do that, okay? So to conclude, pollution is a very serious problem that everyone should address now. Only the mix of environmental policy and the acts of common people can help to avoid this problem from getting worse. I love that you used inversion here, but this is grammatically wrong. Okay, so we talked really a lot about this essay, about some of the issues happening with it. So let's take a look now at the second one. Okay, Andrea, so now let's look at your task 1 here. Let's see, it's the car sales of 3 brands of cars in 9 European countries. Let's see what you did. The bar chart illustrates the amount of cars, yes, the amount of cars sold from 3 different brands in 9 countries of Europe in the present year. It can be seen in the graph that the country with the biggest total of car sales is Hungary, reaching a peak of almost let me see. Nope, not 400, because look, it's 400,000. So you need to indicate that. If you're just calling them, if you're just saying 400, 120, or 100, that's inaccurate data, and this is really going to affect your task achievement score. It'll drop it down just because you missed those zeros, okay? Okay, a peak of almost 400 vehicles. This almost quadruples, not quadruplicates, quadruples the amount of car sales of the countries with the lowest quantity, corresponding to Belgium with less than 100, into Italy that has around 120 cars this sold. Okay? In addition, the brand that keeps its sales relatively stable, except in Belgium, is BMW, presenting an average near 100 cars, not 2. The other company sales fluctuate, excuse me, in each of the 9 countries. Fine. In general, in the European countries shown in the chart, the total car sales are stable between approximately 200 and 300 vehicles, with the exceptions of Hungary that have almost 400 cars sold, Italy and Belgium that have around 100 vehicles each. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this task 1. I didn't do a word count. It felt a little short to me. I don't know if it felt short to me because of the actual words themselves or because it was missing some information, but I do want to talk about that. The first thing that is really important is when you're doing a task like this, it's really important to mention all of the key features. What are those key features? The key features are the 3 car companies and then the 9 countries. I really want you to mention all of those categories by name. In this task 1, you mentioned, I think, 3 countries. So you mentioned that there were 9, but you only talked about Hungary, Belgium, and Italy. I have no idea about any of those other countries, okay? So that's the first problem and probably the biggest. This is, excuse me, because these are called key features. And when you don't even mention them by name, then that's going to affect your score. Like, for example, you mentioned Hungary. I think you mentioned, yeah, Belgium, fine. And then I think you mentioned Italy. Right. But honestly, like France is an important one too. France is like the 2nd highest. So you should have mentioned at least once by name all the countries. That doesn't mean you should have given details about every single one. But one way you could solve this problem is here when you say 9 countries of Europe in the present year specifically and then just list them. This will keep you from falling into this trap and not mentioning all the countries. The second thing is I felt like you were missing details. Hungary, Italy, Belgium. There it is again. Okay. You were missing details. So I felt like I needed more information about the car sales. You told me the average of BMW, but an average really can mean anything, can't it? It can mean that you have like 0 here and then you have like 200 somewhere else. So it's not really helpful in terms of trying to figure out this information and trying to kind of visualize what you're looking at. Also, when you tell me that the other companies fluctuate, this also doesn't help me. I have no idea what that fluctuation is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where their numbers are. I don't even have an approximation. I mean, for example, I think it's very meaningful that by and large, Audi was the least popular car sold among the three. Okay? And Ford was probably the second most popular, but I don't have that information from you. I also mentioned before that I thought France was important, and I like what you did here. Where was it? Oh, okay. Wait, no, that wasn't it. It was somewhere else. Yeah. You said that the total car sales approximately between 200 and 300. That was good, but again, I don't know what those countries are. I have no idea. I only know about these three. This, and this. And then, of course, the other problem is with your accuracy. You failed to mention that all these numbers were in the thousands, and that's going to be a huge problem. I can tell you for sure that it's going to drop your task achievement score down because it's inaccurate data. All right, so you've got some things that you need to correct here. One thing I want to say about task 1 is that there is no one right way to do it, okay? There are multiple ways to do it. I could give you a suggestion for what I think is a good way to deal with this. First of all, I think that one good way is to talk about, obviously, Hungary, okay? Then talk about France. Then mention that all of these countries were between, mention all the countries that were between 100 and 300 in a very brief sentence, their figures, okay? And then mention that Belgium was slightly below that. Oh, and I guess we got Italy too. Right. Okay, so then mention Italy and Belgium in their own little sentence. Then in terms of the car sales, I don't really feel like an average here is meaningful. I would have talked about BMW and where those figures are, which you more or less did. You did that more or less. But then, like I said, I felt like this was just not enough information. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Now you just need to correct these and give us your error correction list updated and your new set of essays. All right, good luck with it, and I'll be looking forward to your next set of essays.